universe presents us with a huge range of theories, concepts, and research opportunities. Everyone views the universe differently, and whilst some believe there are more than one, some choose to not ponder the overwhelming vastness for too long, and some dive headfirst into all the latest studies and breakthroughs. We are all part of the same universe. Exploring the world beyond our homes on Earth can seem impossible to comprehend, though with every bit of research we draw a little closer to unravelling some more of the puzzle. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at these recent discoveries. Kidnapped by Bigfoot. The year was 1924. The gold rush may have been over, but that did not stop Swedish immigrant Albert Ostman from giving gold prospecting a go. After spending years in construction and logging, Ostman decided it was time for something different, and he thought he might as well get a little vacation out of it while he was at it. He had heard of a rumour of a gold mine near Toba Inlet, near Vancouver, Canada. The area was lush with trees and surrounded by mountains, the perfect getaway from his recent year-long construction job. He hired a local indigenous man as a guide to the head of the Toba Inlet. The guide was a talkative man and told Ostman tales of the area. One tale even involved the rumoured gold mine. According to him, there was a heavy-drinking white man who would come and go from the mine, always having gold to spare. But one time, he never came back from the mine. They suspected a Sasquatch had killed him. He described the creatures as having hair all over their bodies, but they stood upright like people. And they were big, approximately 8 feet tall, big enough to leave 2-foot-long tracks. Ostman had never heard of such a creature and brushed the tale aside as folklore. Once the guide had dropped him at a site at the head of the inlet, Ostman asked him to come back for him in 3 weeks. He would camp back at that particular spot once he was finished with his prospecting trip. Over the next week, he worked his way over 10 miles into the wilderness on the hunt for the elusive gold mine. After some time, he came to a spot that he deemed perfect for his permanent setup. He was only there a single night when strange things started to occur. Ostman awoke, after a deep and heavy sleep, to discover that his entire campsite had been disturbed. He hadn't heard anything the night before and simply blamed it on an animal. On night 2, his backpack had been dumped out. He noted that food had been taken. Instead of going out to look for gold, Ostman hung around the camp, hoping to catch a glimpse at the culprit. But nothing showed itself. On the 3rd night, he was determined to stay awake. He needed to know what was lurking in the darkness around his site. That, however, proved to be impossible. Having obviously fallen asleep, he was awoken by something picking him up off the ground, still cocooned in his sleeping bag. After being dragged and carried for what he believes was 3 hours, Ostman was finally dropped. He described hearing 4 voices, speaking in a language he didn't understand, but it was too dark to make them out. As the sun came up, however, he got a good look. There were indeed 4 of them. He described them as an old man and an old woman, along with a young boy and girl. He estimated the old woman to have been over 7 feet tall and 500 pounds. The old man was even bigger than that. He was sure his gun would not affect the large man, except for maybe angering him, so he sat and contemplated his escape. The family of Sasquatches kept him in a small valley for days, occasionally bringing him sweet roots as food. The young ones, who started out shy, eventually took an interest in him. He made them water ladles and tossed them old snuff cans to play with, and that's when he came up with his ingenious escape plan. He had once heard a story of a man blinding a bull by throwing snuff into its eyes. Next, he threw the young boy Sasquatch another snuff box, this time with a teaspoon of snuff inside. The young boy tasted the snuff and then took it to the old man. It was obvious they enjoyed the taste of it and came back for more. Ostman then knew he had to get the old man to eat a whole box of snuff, and then hopefully he could get away. Because of the interest in the snuff, the old man kept getting closer to Ostman, eventually grabbing a box and emptying it into his mouth. He swallowed it in one gulp before licking the box clean. After a few minutes, the old man became sick. Ostman saw his opening and ran. Using his rifle, he shot warning shots as he escaped. He miraculously was not followed. He made his way down the mountain and finally into a nearby camp. He merely told the locals he was lost and did not mention the sight of the Sasquatch until much later, fearing being called crazy. Needless to say, he never tried prospecting again. Stephen Kubaki. It's the winter of 1978 in the American Midwest, and Stephen Kubaki, a student from Hope College, is taking advantage of the last days of February before spring began to go skiing. He leaves his student digs to go on a solo cross-country skiing trip. Kubaki was an accomplished outdoorsman who climbed mountains in Europe and was an avid cross-country skier. Familiar with the area, this was an ordinary weekend pursuit for Kubaki and to those at college who knew him. However, this small excursion would end up being far from ordinary. Several days later, the alarm was raised when Kubaki failed to return from what should have been a day's activity. At the same time, snowmobilers on the southeastern shore of Lake Michigan had come across a set of abandoned skis and ski poles. The police knew immediately who they belonged to. A search party was sent out, utilizing both land and air rescue, with helicopters and locals deployed to find Stephen. Only 2 more things were subsequently discovered: Stephen's backpack and his footprints in the deep frozen snow. There was something off about the scene, however. The backpack looked as if it had been abruptly thrown to the ground, and the heavy footprints disappeared into nothingness as if Kubaki had walked out of reality. Looking to close off the case with a sense of logic, police figured a more rational explanation. Close to the shores of frozen Lake Michigan, Stephen must have removed his skis and wandered too close to the water, falling through the ice and drowning into the watery depths below. His friends grieved, his family mourned, and life returned to normal as the months passed by. That is until 15 months later, Stephen Kubaki walked straight through the door of his family house over 500 miles away. Stephen told his recollection of events as best he could. That day, May 5th, 1979, he woke up on a grassy knoll in Massachusetts, some 700 miles due east from where he disappeared. He was wearing clothes that were not his, had items such as maps and signs that were neither his nor written by him, and he had no concept of the amount of time that had passed. It was only when he was able to purchase a newspaper he would realize that he had re-emerged to consciousness 15 months later than when he first set off. The last thing he remembered before this was striding forwards on his skis as he made his way around Lake Michigan. Before he knew it, however, he experienced a momentary blip, being enveloped in a cold and frozen darkness that hurried him from one point to another, which felt like he was running. Aside from this, he had no other details to give, and yet the mystery of what happened that day in February 1978 was perhaps less about Kubaki and more about where he was. Urban myths run rife that Lake Michigan is home to cross-dimensional disappearances, essentially the Bermuda Triangle of the Great Lakes. It's not just Kubaki who went missing in this area. Ships, planes, and other people have all disappeared and for whom there was never any trace of again. As of today, Kubaki's disappearance and reappearance remains a mystery. The Horned Beast of Bahia, Brazil. During the hot summer months in the state of Bahia, located in the country of Brazil, it is not uncommon for a large influx of American tourists to make use of the coastal towns as a summer getaway vacation area. It was during these pristine tourism months that a mysterious image emerged from the area of Bahia, Brazil, of what could only be described as a demonic-looking humanoid horned beast that can be seen in crystal clarity to be bathing in a muddy river surrounded by dense mangrove trees while carrying what appears to be a body of a young child dangling in its arms. Although there is little reliable information surrounding the image circulating across the internet, countless sources cite that the image was taken by a young female American tourist believed to be only 15 years old, of whom saw the strange creature and took a quick photo before fleeing the region. Given the incredible clarity of the image, many believed that if the photo is faked, it would have to have been via the use of practical effects or a misidentification on the part of the young girl who took the picture. Some have tried to explain away the photograph, claiming that the creature seen in the image is nothing more than a clam fisherman, as the area is commonly known for clam fishing, with many clam fishermen using secluded areas as their own personal hotspots. However, the image shows a man completely covered in mud from head to toe. with his mouth, eyes and skin completely grey in colour, with no inch of pinkish flesh or human features. The horns on the creature have been dismissed as nothing more than the possible mud-crusted hair that was pointing in different directions. However, the image clearly shows the creature to have a bald, dome-like head with sharp protrusions from the side with no other clumping of hair visible. Every skeptic explanation also fails to address what appears to be the body of a limp child dangling from the creature's arms. Continued sightings have been made over the years surrounding the Bahia horned beast, leaving many to wonder if the dense forestry and unclaimed natural land hides a dark and sinister demonic entity taking advantage of the countless number of people who go missing every year. No further evidence has been gathered surrounding the creature. The Blackbeard merfolk sighting. Edward Blackbeard Teach is remembered as one of the most fearsome men to have ever lived, becoming a legend during his own lifetime as one of the greatest pirates to have ever lived. Although his reign as a pirate only lasted a short 2 years, it was the terrifying cruelty of Blackbeard that cemented him as a legend. Many merchants and fishermen would often claim that when in battle against Blackbeard, they had believed him to be the devil himself, due to the fact that he would often put smoking fuses in his long black hair and beard and strapped weapons on his body to make himself look less human and more like a monster. It is for this reason that experts find it extremely peculiar that Blackbeard often wrote that his number one fear of the open sea was that of his mermaid sightings made in specific regions. Blackbeard often wrote that he believed the sighting of the creatures were an omen of bad luck, and that they had made attempts to drag him under the water and steal his gold. Blackbeard would often end his logbook reports with warnings to his crew members of the enchanting powers of the mermaids and never to revisit the areas of his sightings. But what do you make of these interesting discoveries? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.